on the surface, this does not look very good.
Guide me,
No.
Torchbearer Blabs.
Yes,
No,
Torchbearer
yes.
Blabs.
Basically, I even went through this person's LinkedIn, and everything that's in this article is correct. As the title says, Pokemon Company hires Sheeny Armitage as DEI and social responsibility consultant. She relishes in promoting LGBTQ plus agenda to young kids. Which is true. I checked her LinkedIn. You can even find the quote in the article below. And she's basically like, I love it that young kids were at this pride parade. So great. So many of them. And it's like, oh my
What the
God.
heck?
Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm gonna. This is a former yoga instructor and
Yeah,
corporate responsibility manager. What the fuck does this mean? What is a
Corporate responsibility manager is another DEI title. So instead of like a diversity and equity officer or a like diversity manager, they're a corporate responsibility.
Of what?
Their whole role is to just push DEI. So it doesn't matter. Like, don't really get caught up in what the language used for their position is. Their position is to push DEI and the ideology that goes behind that.
Oh, wonderful. This will be great. Everyone loves DEI and Pokemon.
Yeah, of course.
All things. Let's go to read this here. Armitage posted on LinkedIn, after 9.5 years at ASOS, the time has come to move on to something new. It's been quite the journey at ASOS. Many years spent building confidence in my abilities, stepping outside my comfort zone, and continuously challenging myself to be better. So feeling readier than ever to start this new chapter as DEI and social responsibility consultant at the Pokemon Company International. She added, I'm looking forward to joining a wonderful team with new learnings, laughs, impacts, and crash course in all things Pokemon. So she has no idea about this company. Like
well, I mean, of course not. She went from a yoga instructor to being a DEI consultant, and now she's continuing her DEI consultancy, which is how these priests kind of spread the ideology in the first place. They fail upwards, and they get hired by people who know them, because all they're here to do is push ideology. They're not here to improve the company. They're here to, as the sweet baby ink guy said, burn it all down. They want to get rid of the people who would disagree with them or who would go against them and transform industry in their image.
Well, she continued with a LinkedIn post. This is, Armitage previously posted on LinkedIn about one of her highlights at this other company was seeing so many young kids at Pride. She wrote, there's so much joy at Pride, and I think it's one of the best days of the year. I get to celebrate with my best friends and see all the amazing communities and organizations who are centering the LGBTQ plus community. This year was my first year participating in the march, and thanks to Jordan and all the SOSers efforts planning the day, it wasn't let down. One of my many highlights was seeing so many young kids at Pride and seeing all those parents making a conscious effort for their children to know that being LGBTQ plus is something that is to be celebrated for where you put your privates, embraced and proud of, and that if they grow up to be part of the LGBTQ plus family, they'll be loved and encouraged to be themselves. Everyone should be and deserves to be accepted for who they are, and their gender identity and sexuality should never be a reason not to be accepted or loved.
I think it's a major red flag when people talk about how they love seeing kids at Pride or how kids belong at Pride. And I mean, many, many years ago, there was like that pushback of like sexuality and sexual things happen at Pride, so kids don't belong there. And people were just like, well, of course kids belong at Pride. What do you mean? It's just so tiring to watch the trajectory of how they've been wanting to include kids in spaces they have no reason to be there. And whenever people called it out, like, you just get called a bigot. And now we're here where like kids are being taught how to be good allies and how to have like anal sex in third grade. It's just like, it's ridiculous.
How does this make any sense to anybody? Like, at all? I nothing about this makes sense. Especially when you look at, they talked about in this article the job listing itself, and we talked about this about 6 months ago. Blabs, do you recall when this broke? Right. So this position pays, and I'm going to say she should probably make the low end of this because she doesn't know anything about the company she's working for. But she makes between $178,000 and $211,000 a year.
Damn.
What the heck?
With the ceiling being upwards towards $267,000 to preach this nonsense. Now
imagine getting paid so much
exactly.
to ruin companies.
Imagine Pokemon actually paying and shelling this out. Amazing.
What do you? I mean, how do they incorporate? Are we going to start seeing Pride shirts and stuff in Pokemon games?
I choose you, and it's like a Pride emblem.
Right.
I think I remember like their newest game. There was some. I don't want to use the word controversy because that makes it sound like more strenuous, I guess. But they had changed like the costume for the female character in game to make it more androgynous looking, and people were really unhappy with that.
Yep, that was a big thing with Pokemon Go. The changes of the characters, and they look very.
Oh, that too, yeah.
Yeah.
I was super excited to play Pokemon Go on my vacation earlier this year, and then they made all those changes, and I was like, why would you do this?
It's just insane.
This is just another thing for me to say, go Pal World.
Yeah, right?
Right. Now, Blabs, you said that you had some information about this. Their LinkedIn. You said you can't share it.
Yeah, because obviously shares are like their private, my private stuff and all that, so I can't pull it up. But yeah, it's basically everything that you saw in the article is confirmed, and they're like a giant SJW.
Wow. So
pronouns in bio and all, you know.
Straight up, yeah, for sure. This is
pronouns in bio, opinion discarded.
So they're moving this. I mean, this girl has certainly fallen upwards, going from yoga instructor to DEI person at a fashion company, and now Pokemon, of all things. How do you gauge your success in this industry, Kirsha? Like, how is success gauged? How there's a performance metrics called KPI, key performance indicators, right? How, if you work in the DEI/bridge industry, how is your success gauged?
I would say your success is probably gauged more internally than externally. It's like, how well can you incorporate DEI into the company with as little pushback as possible? So you want to make sure that you're making DEI the job of everyone at your corporation, and then eventually having that leak out and being promoted to the consumer of your company, and also having your employees go home and do the work in their personal lives. So you're making cultural transformational change, not just in your own home and not just in your company in like placation ways, like in marketing or in initial hiring, but you're making the moral imperative a part of everyone's everyday job. And doing that, if they're going out and they're doing the work after they leave their job, that is how you know that you have been succeeding. These companies like Harley Davidson or Jack Daniels, who are saying that they're getting rid of DEI, the consultants that are changing the language of DEI, making it go more underground and having these companies continue doing the work, continue pushing the ideology, while making all of us believe, oh yes, we're winning, they're getting rid of it, it's happening. That's how they know that they are doing well. They're getting return on their work because we are no longer looking at them. We are deceived into thinking that we have made a victory, when in reality, nothing has changed.
With, golly, there's so much to this. So with Pokemon getting in on this, I mean, Pokemon of all things, right? Labs, will you do a quick search to see what the Pokemon demographics are? The average player of the Pokemon? I'm just curious to see why this needs to be incorporated at their company and ultimately their products. While we do that, Savvy came in with this takeover over on X. Says better idea is just shut down the American branch. It is a massive money sink and provides nothing of value to the company. Pokemon people buy Pokemon for Pokemon. They play Pokemon for Pokemon. The American branch has contributed nothing to the core game, and when the IP is given to American companies, they absolutely disrespect it. See Pokemon Go. Social responsibility consultant is a joke and a bloat position, and to see it have a higher estimated salary than people working or sending stuff to space is insane. Yes, talking about the price of it. You know, while Blabs looks that up, Kirsha, I had this idea, and you can tell me if this is a dumb idea or not, but I had this idea. maybe months ago, but it's really kind of started to come to fruition. I want to work with some people. We talked about toxic positivity. I want to work with people to create a consultancy brand that goes in and says no to these companies. And the idea of going in and all these companies are afraid to say yes, are afraid to say no. All they do is say yes because if they say no, they're labeled some sort of whatever. They have to deal with HR for whatever reason, right? And I think there's value in being the company, the consultancy firm, to go in and saying no. And you call it the no team or TNT, the no team. You go in and you say no to these companies and you say no to these activists, and you ultimately Elon Musk them, and you cut their companies by 80%. Ultimately, their investment in you saves them millions of dollars, and you get to be the bad guy and the companies don't.
I think that would be a really good idea. And I think if you had like a very good understanding of like Gramsci tactics and Marxism, and you could explain to these companies how these individuals coming in are basically just bullying them to push an ideology. Because I don't believe that every CEO bought into all of these tactics because all the CEOs also want Marxism, right? I don't believe that at all. I believe that these consultants were able to use, their flowery language, their lies, their fake studies to convince CEOs that this is what the public wants, this is what is good for their company, this is what is going to make them money. And even if you don't make money in the short term, don't worry about the angry customers. They're just bigots. We have these venture capital firms that will replace the money that you are losing in the short term. In the long term, it's going to be better for you. And then once enough of these like DEI changers come in and the CEOs kind of are fighting against a force of ideology, it's harder to root out those people. So if you have a counter consultancy company that can like search and destroy Marxism before it ruins a company, I think that would be incredibly good to have.
You're talking to yourself again.
Yeah, I'm just talking to myself. So with Pokemon hiring this company, talking about the demographics associated with this. Now, Pokemon Go has an older demographic, right? Mm-hmm. But Pokemon as a company, according to its own Wikipedia, the franchise's target audience is between 5 and 12 years old.
I believe that's their target audience. I don't believe that is the age of people who actually play or collect Pokemon things. I would say that the demographic probably skews more mid to late 20s at a minimum.
Yeah, think about all the guys who collect the cards and things.
But are they playing? No, here's the thing, though, right? They may be playing it.
It's hard to find precise demographics because, like, there's collectors, there's players, Pokemon Go itself, so it's a bit hard to, like, actually take it.
Okay, but when you get into it initially, you are probably between the ages of 5 and 12.
You should be, yeah.
Right. So ultimately, you are then, dare I use the word, indoctrinated into the idea, the fandom that will ultimately be pushing all this DEI bridge stuff along the way. I mean, they get you young. They get you young.
That's what the modern audience is, in my opinion, right? Like, you see all the companies who are just like, we're remaking this for a modern audience. This is being done for a modern audience. And everybody rolls their eyes and they're like, modern audience doesn't exist. Nobody's buying these things. You're not fooling anyone. And it's like, well, the modern audience doesn't exist. And that is the point. They're trying to create the modern audience. When they talk about the modern audience, they don't talk about people our age. They don't talk about people in Gen Z. They're talking about the new generation who are going to consume all of these remakes that bastardize the originals, that rewrite history in the entertainment industry. They're talking about these people who are going to have all of this DEI nonsense in all of their movies, all of their games, all of their TV shows. Their parents are going to be inundated with it at work, and they're hopefully, in these activist minds, going to be bringing it home. The modern audience is what they are hoping to create. And when you read their words and you think about modern audience doesn't exist, but that is what they want to create, what they're doing makes a lot more sense once you understand that.